The following is a presentation of the Belly Up Sports Media Network.
But as we approach 9:30 here, we've got an old friend coming on in here. Graeme, welcome back to the show. How are you?
Hey, LJ, Brandon, doing well. Thanks for having me on.
So go ahead and, talk about yourself a little bit. I know this is probably the easiest conversation point to bring up right to start, but tell us a little bit about your story here in sports content.
Yeah, so you can find my articles over at jaysjournal.com. We got a really solid team of writers over there, led by our site expert, Eric Troyden. We had a bit of a shakeup there several months ago. We had two co-experts, and they actually both kind of left at the same time. I thought about taking something like that on, but you guys wouldn't believe how many articles you're expected to actually produce at that level. So once I found that out, I was like, I'm good being a contributor. So we had a bit of a leadership change there, just the one site expert, but yeah, we got a lot of content there. Obviously Blue Jays centric stuff, but sometimes we'll write about other baseball things and then just kind of spin it in a kind of Jays manner. So yeah, a lot of good stuff there. No longer with Belly Up Sports. I know you guys are still there with the podcast network. I just, it wasn't working as far as the amount of articles they were looking for. So sometimes it's good to do one thing really well, and if you can't do that, just do one thing as well as you can, I guess. So that's kind of what I'm doing. Still friends with a few people over there. No hard feelings. It just sometimes it's better to be honest with yourself and the people, and just like I can't do that many articles, like 6 or 8 articles for Jay's Journal, and then 2 to 4 for them. It was just getting to be a little bit too much. So I kind of pared it down and a bit more of a singular focus now, if you will.
Certainly. Fantastic. What got you into writing about the Blue Jays?
Lifelong fan, going back, I'm going to age myself a bit here, but to the days of Tony Fernandez. Ernie Witt was definitely one of my early favorite players. And I think I wanted to be a writer for a lot longer time than I've actually been a writer, if that makes any sense. It was kind of the 2020 season when, I wasn't working like a lot of people. So I just started to write things in my notebook about the Blue Jays in that bizarro 2020 pandemic 60-game season. And then I kind of parlayed that into, hitching on with Belly Up, was able to become the beat writer with them, put together a little portfolio, if you will, of articles there. And then I was able to kind of level up, if you will, to Jay's Journal, which gets quite a bit of traffic as part of the fan-sided network. So it just kind of, I've always been a fan. I feel like I know a lot about the team and a lot about the sport, and just happy to share the things I see and the things I'm hearing, and a couple opinions in there every once in a while as well.
Great. So overall, what are your early takes on this Blue Jays team this year?
Yeah, it's pretty much, what I expected. There's been a couple of bumps in the road. Chris Bassett's first start is one that comes to mind, and the first handful of pitches in his second start. But he's really been able to figure it out since then. Actually, the starting rotation's been really up and down. He's had a nice bounce back, and then you think Gausman, he was really solid to start, but then he got lit up Monday night in Houston. Manoah's been shaky in 3 out of his 4 starts. The big question mark was Yusei Kikuchi, but he's actually been pretty decent in his first 3 starts. He got lit up a little bit on the West Coast there, but he actually probably deserved a better fate. Dalton Varsho dropped one in the outfield. He ended up giving up 6 runs. It easily could have been maybe 3 or 4. And who's the other guy I'm missing? The guy who pitched last night, Jose Barrios. He's the big money pitcher. They gave up a couple of big prospects for him, and they re-signed him. He led the league in hits allowed, and I believe home runs allowed. The American League last year, he had an ERA over 5, but he's looked a lot better over his last couple starts. The offense has a different look. You got more speedy guys like Whit Merrifield. I've mentioned Varsho. Kevin Kiermaier has been a revelation with his speed and his defense. The fan base has really taken has really been fond of him. And then you've got the same old gang of, upstarts with Bo Bichette, Vladimir Guerrero Jr., players like that, exciting young players, some veteran guys mixed in there like George Springer. And then, Matt Chapman, who for my money, I might sound like a homer right now. I think he's been the best player in the majors this season. If you look at his offensive numbers with the home runs, the extra base hits, and you're always going to get the stalwart defense. So 11-8, not a fantastic start, but certainly a solid one. And everything's kind of still there for them. As far as, being on track to, achieve their goals.
I think the Blue Jays really put people on notice when they went ahead and made that Dalton Varsho trade back in December and then continued to add on it with guys like Brandon Belt, guys like Chris Bassett, guys like Kevin Kiermaier, as you mentioned. What is your favorite move of the offseason?
Wow, that's a great question, LJ. I'd probably go with the first one you mentioned there. I remember it vividly. It was a couple days before Christmas. I was able to leave my job early, which was great. It was a snowstorm here in Southern Ontario, and then I kind of got home and I was just watching TV, and then that kind of came across my feed, and it really had me excited because. The Jays needed to get a bit more lefty centric as far as their lineup was concerned. Last year, they only featured a couple of guys, Kevin Biggio and Ramel Tapia. Neither one is going to scare you a lot with the left-handed bat. And Varsho brings also a really good defensive player in the corner or center outfields. I believe he led the league in defensive runs saved last year, and a lot of power. So he's a multi-dimensional threat. Obviously, it hurts to give up a prospect, or I guess a young player, not a prospect anymore, in Gabriel Moreno. But you're going to have to do that if you want to get a young, controllable player who seems to be ascending. Lourdes Gurriel Jr. was another guy involved in that deal, and he'll be missed certainly. But I think they got better defensively. I think they got a little faster. And they got a little bit more versatile as far as their lineup is concerned. So I know some fans took them a little bit longer to kind of get on board with that one, but I was a fan from the get-go.
Yeah, again, it's a lot to give up, but I feel like we were one of the few people out there that really were hyping Dalton Varsho up right from the get-go when he started to have that breakout last year. Certainly, thrilled to see him in a bit of a bigger market than Arizona on the East Coast. That kind of leads me into this next question here. I'm interested to see you, obviously living in Canada, your analysis of this. East Coast teams always clearly more marketable, more eyes on them than others. But do you feel like the Blue Jays sit in a unique position being in Canada?
Oh, of course. I mean, when the team's good, we saw it in 2019 with the Raptors. I know that's a different sport, but the entire country gets on board, and it's really cool. You'll see people from British Columbia all the way out to the Maritimes really get on board with the team, no matter what time they're playing. Obviously, there's a bit of a time shift as far as going to the different coasts there, but it really does. It does make it for a unique experience as far as the fan base is concerned. I've been to the Rogers Center a couple times already this season, and there's a different feeling. I got to say, there's been a high amount of expectation and excitement around the team, but this year it's a little bit different. It's almost like we really expect to be above 90 wins, to be in that playoff chase, and to win some playoff games actually this year. So it's a little bit tense for sure, the vibe in the crowd, but it's that's what you want, right? You want to have high expectations, you want to win, and so yeah, it's different from any other team, I would say. Obviously, there's teams like the Yankees, like the Red Sox. They have that international flair, international appeal, but Canada, it's just different because it's just so vast. And like I said, you got people from Victoria all the way to St. John's rooting for the team. So it's pretty cool.
Now, let me ask you, because you mentioned that you have been to the Rogers Center a few times this year. and there was quite a few upgrades done with the stadium, especially I saw the big one in the outfield, what they did with the wall and everything out there. I mean, what do you think? Is it a much better experience now at the park, do you think?
It depends on what you're into, Brandon. For me, I went actually this not the home opening day, but the second game. There was a Vlad Jr. bobblehead. I wanted to get my hands on. I got there. Doors open at gates open at 5:30. We got there before 6, and I walked away empty-handed as far as that's concerned. So there's a lot of kind of mania around the team, and it tends to kind of get to your anxiety if you kind of suffer from that at all. The concourse is busy. There's a lot of people at the bars and stuff like that. So if you're not into it, you just go to your seat and you'll find there's a bit of a paint job on them. And the whole stadium has a bit of a different feel. And obviously the wall dimension, like you mentioned, is a little bit different. But if you're into that sort of thing, or if you're the type of person that likes to walk around, or maybe you have young children, there's something for you there. There's the Park Social, which has like the giant Jenga you could play with and things like that. And they had free candy at the game there I went to last time. It was last weekend. So I think they kind of tried to market it as something for everyone, in a place where, everyone feels included, which is so important these days. So you kind of got to go and see it for yourself. I don't know if you guys ever come up here to Canada, but if you ever do, I would definitely say, you got to go and check it out. There's a lot to see. And I think this was kind of really brilliant. You can't check it all out in one day. So they want you to come to not just one game, maybe 3 or 4 games. And, that's marketing 101, right? So it's really cool to see on TV, but you got to experience it sometimes. And if you ever do, you got to let me know. Because we could go to a game together or whatever.
Absolutely. Keeping with this Canada theme here, let's move back a month or so. The World Baseball Classic, from both I'm assuming Team Canada fan and a baseball fan, overall, what is your reaction to the event?
I loved it. I think it was the most exciting World Baseball Classic I remember watching. I definitely watched the 2017 one. A little murky before that. I think I watched the 2013 one, but that's going back 10 years ago, so it's kind of hard to remember. But a lot of excitement. I think Canada did really well. They were able to win a couple games. They didn't do very well against the United States, and they didn't do well against Mexico, but they were able to beat Great Britain handily, and they were also able to beat Colombia. I think there was a couple of pretty good performances. Edouard Julien, who actually hit a home run for the Minnesota Twins the other day, was someone who kind of flashed for me, as well as Blue Jays prospect Otto Lopez. Had really good tournaments. So it was really fun to see. Actually, Great Britain was a team I really enjoyed watching. When I first saw them against the United States, I'm like, this could be a blowout. It could be 25-0 or something like that. But Trace Thompson hits the home run off the get-go. They kind of stay in the ball game for a little bit. They make a few errors, and Buck Martinez on the call said, if they didn't make these mistakes, they'd be right in the ball game. I think it was a 6-2 game or something. Blue Jays prospect Jalen Rudd is a corner outfielder for them. He's only 20 years old. He's playing in A ball right now for the Dunedin Blue Jays. So he was someone who kind of flashed in that win over Colombia. So just a lot of heart. And they had that catcher. I can't think of his name, but he just had a wonderful tournament. He's a prospect for Seattle, I believe. Anyway, so I think it was a really good tournament, a lot of excitement, and it's big for Great Britain because they didn't finish last. Actually, Colombia did, so they get that bonus money, and they get an automatic entry into the next tournament. So that's huge for the development of baseball in that country. And a lot of these guys aren't actually from the UK; they'll be from the Bahamas or some other country, but they're attached to a major league team somewhere in the minors, or they're playing collegiate baseball. So some pretty good young players. And I thought it was a lot of fun. It was a great way to kind of get the juices flowing, if you will, and kind of get ready for baseball season before actual baseball season.
For Team Canada, was the Freddie Freeman ad a surprise for you guys? Or, I mean, certainly I'm assuming a welcome one, but overall, what was your reaction to that?
Well, that wasn't a surprise for me, LJ. I mean, he did play in, I believe, the 2017 Classic as well. And if you know anything about his story, you know his mom died when he was at a young age. I think he was only 10 or 12 years old, and she was from, I believe, Windsor, Ontario. So it's always a sentimental kind of thing for Freddie, and you know we love Freddie north of the border. You know, I know he's played on the Braves for a long time. He's a member of the Dodgers now, but we really consider him one of our own, and he's steady as they come. But better than steady. Steady sells him kind of short. He's just a class act. He plays the game the right way. I know that's become a bit of a cliche. He got hurt in that tournament, but it really didn't matter. We still had some other guys to step up. Tyler O'Neill, a kid from around here, Noah Scuro, I believe he's from Burlington, Ontario, pitched a dandy of a game against Columbia. So to answer your question, no, that didn't surprise me at all. It seems really important for him to represent for Canada for his mom, and you know, you never forget that, and it's a really emotional thing. So we're so happy to have him. We'll always welcome him with open arms.
Certainly, and kind of, you know, bridging these last couple topics here, Rogers Center, World Baseball Classic, you mentioned Dunedin. I think last time we got to talk to you, the Blue Jays were still in Dunedin, or maybe Buffalo. So
yeah,
what has it been like to finally get them home over this last year and a half now?
Wow. So I remember 2021 when, you know, they first they played their first games at the Rogers Center since, I guess it was, 2019. They played those games in, you know, Dunedin and then Buffalo Salem Field, where the Buffalo Bisons typically play. So that, again, it was very emotional, that coming home moment. Obviously 21, they had a really good stretch run. They finished one game short of the postseason. Last year, they won one more game. They got into that playoff series against Seattle, but that went downhill. So, you know, I think there's a lot of excitement about the team. The fans have kind of tried to, like a lot of us, try to forget about 3 and 2 years ago and trying to, you know, move forward from that trying time. But I think these next level upgrades with the stadium, this is only phase 1, which happened this offseason. There's going to be additional ones to come in the next couple of off seasons. So I think it was a perfect timing for that. It's a team that's on the rise. It's a team that's their fan base is so huge, like I said, and they missed them for you know, the better part of 2 years or a year and a half or whatever it was. So it's a really good timing, and like I said, it's just a lot of excitement about the team right now, which is really cool to be a part of.
Brandon?
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about, you know, you kind of mentioned everyone in the starting rotation, but let's move to the bullpen, because there was a pretty impactful move that Toronto made in the offseason to go out and get Eric Swanson from Seattle. Of course, you have Jordan Romano there as your closer, who's been really good to start this year and was exceptional last year. Past that, you know, there's a few familiar names in there still, but how are we feeling? Because it seemed like in that playoff series versus Seattle, and I know that the circumstances are a lot different, but to bring in, you know, Kikuchi out of the bullpen, and just like, I thought that the bullpen management was a little strange at times there in the playoffs. So, you know, how do you see this kind of playing out past Romano and Swanson?
Yeah, it's a great question, Brandon. I think it was one of the bigger question marks kind of going into the season. And I think they did a targeted they targeted certain guys. Obviously, Swanson was one of them. You give up the big bat in Hernandez, but sometimes some of the shaky outfield play and base running. They also got a left-handed reliever, Adam Mako, who's in, I believe, high A right now, left-handed guy. So, you know, Swanson's a high strikeout guy, which is what they were kind of missing from their bullpen other than Romano. Jimmy Garcia is another guy who's kind of trusted in that 7/8 inning role, kind of as a setup type of option. I completely agree with you. The wheels kind of really fell off in that second wild card game. You had Gossman pitched a really good game, and he left nine, I believe it was 9-1, and there was 2 outs in the 6th inning. It's easy to kind of dissect that and like, oh, maybe he should have left him in a little bit longer, but kind of everything that could have went wrong, it did go wrong, is the way manager John Schneider kind of framed it. Bass wasn't very good in that game. They acquired Anthony Bass from the Marlins at the trade deadline. He had a really good season, but I feel like his numbers kind of got a little bit elevated after the trade, which is never something you want to see. And then, they brought in their one left-handed pitcher, Tim Meza, to face Carlos Santana, who's a switch hitter. He hits most of his home runs, if I'm not mistaken, from the left side. So he had to switch it over. He only hit, I think, 2 home runs from the right side, but he hit a home run anyways. So that was tough. I kind of still don't think that, is this a top 10 bullpen in baseball? Probably not. It's probably closer to 13 or 14. But another guy who's kind of flashed and has been really good for the most part. He didn't have a great outing last night in Houston, but is another Canadian guy, Zach Pop. He's from Brampton, Ontario, and he's another guy they got in that trade with the Marlins, along with Anthony Bass. He's got an interesting delivery. He's mixed up his pitches. They weren't even sure if he was going to make the team because he does have some options. They thought it might be, maybe Trent Thornton or someone else who's been wildly inconsistent. But if he could be part of the solution, I definitely think that it can improve matters. And I also think, they've got a couple guys kind of waiting in the wings in Buffalo. Yosver Zulueta is the guy who I'm kind of thinking of, that he's their number 3 prospect right now. He's 25 years old. He's got pretty electric stuff. If someone like, Trevor Richards or something like that, or maybe even Pop, because he does have options, if they falter or there's some injuries, he's a guy that you might see. And he's a guy who can be a multi-inning reliever out of that pen. So, they do need some more than just a couple options, but we'll see how it goes. That's something I'm certainly not. That could be a strength of the team, but right now it's not. So we'll have to kind of keep our eyes on that.
Overall, how would you grade out the management situation? Obviously, you changed courses midway through last year. How would you grade it currently?
I like John Schneider. I think he definitely tried to mix things up. You never want to keep it status quo when you take over from a manager who's been canned. Even if it's on a good team, they had a winning record. They were just going through a really rough patch. I think he likes to run the bases. He likes to take calculated risks. You see a lot of first to third moves on a base hit, which is cool to see. And it's not just with anyone. If it's Belt or Alejandro Kirk running, he's not going to tell him to go to third base because they are both slow runners. But if it's someone like Kevin Kiermaier or maybe Whit Merrifield, you're going to see him, send the runner if he's at second base and there's a base hit that goes through the infield there. So that's something that's good to see. I've also noticed that he's been giving the starters a bit more rope. In the last game that I went to last weekend, it was Kikuchi, and he was solid through 5. I can't remember how many pitches he was at, but somewhere in the 80s. I thought he would get the handshake, but he actually brought him out for the 6th, and he went 1-2-3 to his credit. So I think he gives the bullpen that kind of shot, I should say the starters that shot in the arm of confidence, and they've responded so far. As you guys know, it's a long season. You don't want to use the bullpen too much if you don't have to. And just little moves like last night, Kirk got a base hit and then he put the pinch runner in. They only had 3 hits at the time. They put in Espinal as the pinch runner. Whit Merrifield doubles into the left field gap. Or left field corner, I should say, and he comes all the way around to score. Obviously, it looks good when it works, but I think that was a really smart move because of how little offense they've been able to generate in that game. Just you want to make sure that you're getting your best shot on the base paths out there. And Danny Jansen can always come in and catch the last couple of innings, which he ended up doing. So I like what I've seen. I think he tries to keep it fresh. Obviously, we've got Don Mattingly in the fold as well, which a lot of people kind of raised their eyebrows at when he was brought along. But I don't think he's got his eye on taking his job or anything like that. I think he wants to be part of the solution. He wants to be part of a championship winning staff, and I think he could only help.
Another guy that you're going to need to help in a championship win here would be Alek Manoah, but it has not been a successful first 4 starts, to say the least here. Walk rate way up here at about 15%, strikeout rate down to 16%, expected, batting average, slugging, ERA, all down within that bottom 20% here. And Brandon, correct me if I'm wrong, we were discussing this a little bit the other day. These issues were kind of extending into the end of last season as well. So what really is going on with him in your eyes?
That's a great question, LJ. I just think he's not executing. He's not locating his pitches. He had this unbelievable streak entering the season of pitching at least 5 innings, and he's failed to do that. I believe in 3 of his first 4 starts. He's giving up a lot of hard contact. He's giving up, obviously, base hits, extra base hits. I still think he's going to be able to work his way through it, but it's the classic thing in baseball that you see. He's been so dominant over his first 40 starts or whatever it was, going back to May of 2021 when he made his debut against the Yankees. He's been so good. I think the league now has a book on him, and they've been able to adjust to a lot of his stuff. But I also think, like I said, it comes down to him not executing his pitches, not hitting his spots, maybe not having faith in some of his pitches. And I do think that the pitch clock could have something to do with it. He's one of those guys, even though he's, I believe, only 24 years old, he likes to take his time. He likes the finger signals. He didn't like the pitch calm last year for a lot of the season. So I think it might be throwing him off a little bit, and he might be rushed. I also sometimes think he gets a little bit too amped. I think we saw it in the playoff series against Seattle. He had a rough first inning. And in the first game of the season, the season opening game against St. Louis, same thing. He had a hard time in that game. He didn't get out of the, I think he only pitched 3 1/3 or something like that. I was actually of the mind that Kevin Gausman should have been our number 1 starter. I just think he's got better stuff, and he's a little bit more level-headed. If you're going to award someone for last season, then why have a competition? Gausman had a better spring, and he looked sharper coming into the season. But it seemed like this whole thing of Manoah was a Cy Young Award nominee last year, so we're just going to give it to him. And I don't know. I hate it.
Brandon, do you have anything else to toss in here?
No, I don't think so. We did a fantastic job hitting really all aspects of this.
So I guess just a couple more questions. Then what do you think necessarily is the ceiling, and what do you think is the floor? And what's the difference there for this group?
Floor, I think, this is a team that's won 90 games and 91 and 92 games the last couple of years. So if they take a step back from that, I think it would be a huge disappointment to the front office, the players themselves, the fan base. So I think getting back to the postseason is the absolute floor. Ceiling, sky's the limit. World Series. I think this is definitely a World Series contender. Some people might not put them up there with the likes of, obviously the Rays are playing unbelievable baseball right now. You always got to consider the Astros, even though they haven't gotten off to a great start. And, some teams in the National League as well, like Padres and Braves, maybe the Brewers or whoever you want to say. But, at this point, we're only about 20 games into the season. The season's really starting to take shape, and we have a very long way to go. So, I definitely think the sky's the limit, but they just kind of got to keep it steady. They've had a few lopsided losses this season, but they all count as one loss. So they just got to kind of turn the page when that happens. But, I think this is a team that could definitely win the division, but this is, in my opinion, it's always the best division in baseball. Mm-hmm. And, the Rays, they could win easily over 100 games with the pace that they're on. So to me, as long as they get into the tournament, and then, you want to be playing your best ball at that time. But, that's a long way away, as we both know, as we all know.
All right. Well, one more time, real quick, for anyone who's joining us or joined us late, where can we find you?
Yeah, so like I was saying, jaysjournal.com, you can find my articles there. I usually come out with 2 to 3 articles per week. On Twitter at Bus Wallace. Check out the other writers we have there. We're a really solid team of writers, like I was saying. So yeah, be happy to interact with you on social media. And real quick, guys, I wanted to say, do you remember the Yahoo Sports used to have live baseball on their website? Maybe this is a thing you guys don't remember, but sorry, I was listening to some of the show you guys were talking about, and it was great. They'd be like, now we're going to take you to Baltimore. We got the Orioles and the Dodgers, and I don't even think it had a host. It would just go between. It was kind of like game surfing or whatever it was called. It was really cool, and it was free. And then they pulled the plug on that, but it was, I want to say, like around 2014 or something like that. Anyways, they should bring it back because it's a great idea. You could maybe have a studio host, or just maybe have it once a week or whatever. But essentially, you guys have it. You could almost have someone at the switchboard, like, okay, let's go to Tropicana Field. We got the Rays and the Giants, whatever. So it'd be really cool if they could bring something like that back, because for people who love baseball, maybe you have MLB premium, but if you don't, you're just picking whatever games are you could find, right? So maybe we could work on that, or get MLB.com or some billionaire, to get on that. But I've taken up too much of your time already.
By no means. It's been great talking to you. And again, there's no better sport to do that with. Graeme, you have a wonderful night, and we'll definitely keep in touch.
Okay, great to be with you guys again. Have a good one. Love the rebrand.
Thank you.